So, hi everyone. I'm here today joined by Ryan, who is a health coach and the podcaster of the Health Wealth podcast. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you, Philippa. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. So, tell us a bit about you, the health coaching. Have you always done it? What got you into health coaching?
Yeah, so it was kind of a personal journey that got me started down this path of sorting out my own health first, and then it kind of led me deep into the health and nutritional world. And I learned a lot of lessons that what we're taught is mostly wrong, and the mainstream narrative and the thoughts are not actually correct around a lot of diet, nutrition, and health. And as I applied it to myself and improved my health, I began to learn more and more, research, get deeper into it, and I began to see how I could help other people. And so I started applying it and helping people around me, and then moving on to the full-on coaching and helping clients alongside the podcast where we just look to educate people. So overall, we're looking to improve people's health and wellness through diet and lifestyle, and just give people the power back over their own health.
Amazing. And so what was it that led you to that yourself? You said it was a bit of a personal journey to start off with.
Yeah, so it was a typical one, I think, for many people, that we put it down to aging. I was getting older, and I got married, and we had kids, and you're busy with work, and I began to I'd always been in good shape and played sports and been fit, and then I began to put some weight on, and you're hurting all the time, your joints, you're not sleeping well, you're stressed, you got the brain fog and you can't concentrate, and you're feeling anxious all the time and having to deal with anxiety, and then that feeds into worse sleep, and just feeling worse and worse, and just waking up each day, and you're struggling through. And people put that down, that's just naturally getting older, that's what happens. And I just kind of thought that I didn't want to accept that. I didn't think that was right, that we should be, I was, I'm 36 now, so that was like my early to mid 30s, and I was like, this isn't right, I'm young in the grand scheme of things. So I just began to look into it and just began to learn, and I just began to make tweaks to my own life, to how I was living, how I was eating, and I began to see great results. And so I just kept going with that and just learned more and more. And as I say, that the main thing that I learned is that pretty much everything we think we know, and that I thought I knew about health and fitness and illness and diet, is basically wrong. And so you have to flip it all around, and then got amazing results. So that was kind of where I started.
Really well done. And obviously anything like that is quite a journey. I love your point that 30 is not old. I'm in my 40s now, and I'm like, I think I'm 18 still. But I look around and going, oh, there's an ache in my hip. Is it because of my age? And maybe it is, maybe it's not. But you're right. We also age better if we have the right nutrition, I guess. And it's understanding what is right. And you've said that everything we're taught is wrong. So do you want to elaborate on that a bit, of what you found and what sort of surprised you and how you've changed it?
Yeah, sure. So, I'll talk about one of the first things that I actually implemented was intermittent fasting, which I just basically dropped breakfast and stopped eating breakfast. And obviously we're told, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And, we're told to eat little and often, it's good for us and all of this stuff. And it's the opposite. So just getting rid of that one meal, and I saw huge improvements in my energy, in just how I felt throughout the morning and the rest of the day. And that then transpires to the next day, and it's a knock-on effect. And so that was like the first thing that just, and I'd always thought that was correct, what I thought before, and I'd always ate little and often and felt like I had like a fast metabolism, and I was always hungry and then eat the next one. But that's not really how we should be, and we need to give our body actually breaks in between where we're not digesting food, because the body has a lot of other processes it needs to do other than digestion. And that was one of the first things. And then there's things like the low fat craze, which was, I know probably when you were younger, if it's similar age to me, that was kind of really big and really being imprinted on our generation. And again, terrible idea that fat is so essential for humans, because when we have the low fat products, what are they replaced by? Fat's naturally there. When it's replaced by sugar and by chemicals and flavorings, additives, which you don't want. So yeah, that's another big one that I learned.
I think I'd heard that, and I believe it was like a massive marketing ploy by various companies. They did a massive campaign to go, yep, have the low fat, it's great. And of course, as you say, it's full of all the bad things. And now we are unlearning. So with your health coaching then, what sort of people do you work with? Is there a type, or what do you look to do with them?
So I'm open to working with absolutely anyone, whether they want to lose a bit of weight, whether they want to just slightly improve their health, or whether they're serious health conditions. But the target group that I'm kind of aiming at to help, because I feel I can do the most to help them with them, is those people with serious health conditions where they're being told by their doctor, this is you. You can take medication to deal with it a bit, but this is you for the rest of your life. There's nothing we can do. It's going to get progressively worse. Those are the people that I want to help, because is not true. That's what the medical world believe, because they're built around just medications are the only thing you can do. But actually, a lot of these conditions, they're lifestyle conditions. They're affected by a diet, a lifestyle. They're metabolic, and you can make huge improvements and reverse most of them through diet and lifestyle changes. But people just aren't aware. So they're the kind of people that I really want to reach. The people that have no hope and think there's nothing they can do. That's who I want to get to, and show them that there is something they can do.
That's a really wonderful challenge you've set yourself. And you have your podcast, obviously, talking about this. On the podcast, what sort of issues do you address?
Yeah, so we talk about everything, and we kind of have a mix. Half of it is trying to educate people and, addressing issues and, going deep into like diabetes and cancer. And we're going to have one talking about autism soon and about children's health and things like that. The other half is we have people on sharing their stories just to try and prove to these people that, it does work. Because I can sit here and I can say to people, hey, guess what? Change your diet and it'll cure this condition. And people say, yeah, right. But we get people on who've actually done it, because that's a bit more believable to people. It's more proof. So we have people on who've completely reversed their Crohn's from being at the point of they were about to have their bowels removed and it was horrific, and now completely no medication, completely clear, stories like that. So that's the other thing we try and do on the podcast, is get those real life stories out there, because I think that's the most powerful way to spread the message.
Definitely, people respond to stories, and you want to see someone normal as well. You don't want to see a celebrity who can afford a nutritionist and afford a PT and all these things. And I don't begrudge them. If you can, why not? I certainly would. But I know when I look for inspiration, I look for someone who looks like me, who has done something amazing and is just a normal person. And I think the same with health issues. You want to see someone who could be you, because then it can be you, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're going for. It's once you've seen someone in the same position as you get the results, it's possible. Whereas if you're just being told by someone else, someone who seems like they're healthy is just telling you, hey, change this and you'll be fine. You can understand them being skeptical. But, we get those people who are like, hey, look, this person was actually in the same place as you and look where they are now. That could be you. And that's hopefully a better and more positive way to try and do it.
Have you ever had a client who's just really moved you with their transformation, in terms of you've seen their struggle, you've worked with them, and they've come to the other side, and something in you has gone, oh my God, this is why I do it?
Yeah, to be honest, I get that feeling with most of them. It's you know what, it's jobs like this, like you tell people what you do, and then people are like, oh, that's really great, that's really nice. But to be honest, it's it's kind of almost a selfish, it's a hard way to describe it, but the feeling you get from it is like yeah, you're helping someone else, but you get this amazing feeling from it. So you don't feel like, oh, I'm doing this great service to someone else. You feel amazing from it as well. I get that with all of them. There's been some great stories. There's one I talk about a lot was a guy with hypothyroidism, and we've got him pretty much completely off his medication, which would be classed as impossible. There's been cases with Crohn's again, and like Crohn's is a horrible condition. These people that they imagine, for people who don't have Crohn's, imagine that you can never go out anywhere in public without planning out where toilets are on the journey, where you can get to in an emergency, and always feeling on edge. Like, that's just fortunately, I've never been through it myself, but that's horrible. And that's what these people have. And being able to get them to a point where they almost forget that they had Crohn's, and they can just go around don't have to worry about that. Don't stress. Just go out and do whatever. And that, that's an amazing feeling, definitely, getting people like that.
It's amazing that that it's possible. But how do you find what's right and what isn't right? As you said already, there's a lot of information that we're told that we take for granted. You've done all this work to figure out what does and doesn't work. So how do you validate everything you hear? And how can other people validate that information as well?
Yeah, I mean, that is a great question, because for how people can validate the information is, I don't even think I have the actual answer for that yet. You have to do some personal research yourself, because there is so much conflicting information. But the thing that I like to use, which I encourage others to use, is look at what really works. There's so many studies and papers and research that will tell you one thing and another thing, another thing, another thing. But none of these are real life. Most studies are just epidemiological data, which means they've just asked people questionnaires, and scientists have thought, well, I think this shows this, or they're studies in animals, which may not necessarily go to humans. So I'd like to look at, what actually works for people. Like you say, if we've had someone who's got Crohn's that badly, and we've implemented the steps we've taken and it's got rid of it, then that works. It doesn't matter what a study tells me. If I'm work with someone who has type 2 diabetes, for example, and we get rid of the type 2 diabetes and it's gone. If a study comes out and tells us that what we were doing for them causes diabetes, that study it doesn't matter. Their type 2 diabetes is gone because of what they did. And that means a lot more than a study. So I think look at what works in real life. And I think people have to just self-experiment a little bit, which is what I did as well. If you try something and it works for you, then it doesn't matter what anyone else says, it works. So I think you have to try things. And it's a really sad state that it is so so many different ideas and so many different points being put forward that it is confusing to people. And I think that's really sad, because there's great information out there and there's so much people can do, but sometimes because it's so conflicted, people kind of just give up and just think, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing here, so I'm just going to leave it. And I think that is sad. So I would say, look at what's actually working in real life. If someone's saying, oh, this works, has it worked in a real life situation? That would be the thing I would look for.
Great advice. The same with the therapy that I do. You have to see what works for the individual. I can't just apply a framework to each person and go, yes, it's going to work for everyone. It has to be bespoke, and I guess the same with the bodies. There's a really good book I love about the effect on medical research on women, and basically how it's not done. So I can really believe how the studies don't actually fit what you need. Maybe not just men as well, but obviously you take the average, don't you? And then you've always got outliers, you've always got exceptions. We are the same, but we're also different. So I think it's a really important message of going, what does work for you, and play around with it, and just allow yourself to go through that process and not be too worried on fitting all the boxes all the time, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And an important one along those lines is blood labs. They have all these reference ranges in hospitals, and your doctor has that say, oh, you need to be in this range. But people don't understand what those ranges are based on is just an average of the people who've come in and had their blood tested. But who's going into a hospital and having their blood tested? It's sick people. So that range is based on sick people, and they want you inside it. So it's like, do you actually want to be in there? And with a lot of things, you maybe don't. So it's taking into account all these things and thinking, okay, is what I'm being told actually what's going to be best?
Definitely. I mean, I love doctors and nurses and scientists. This isn't so they don't work hard, but I think the key thing is do what's best for you, and sometimes that might go against the grain.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, like you say, I'm not having a go at doctors. Doctors do what they're trained to do, and unfortunately what they're trained to do is just prescribe medications, and so they're just doing their job. So yeah, we're not having a go at them.
So what's your vision for sort of the future with what you're doing and how far you want to take it? Because this is a pretty hefty mission you've set yourself. There's lots of people who need this. Where do you want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, yeah, I just want to reach as many people as we can. I want to keep growing the podcast so we can reach more people and educate. And with the coaching, just get as many people as I can to really have an effect on their life and help them. And another thing as well with the coaching, which I try and always make clear to people, is that the coaching, what I look to do more is educate people to take care of themselves. So I don't want long-term clients. Like, I just should probably at the most a couple months is all they would need to work with me. And I teach them. I don't just say, do this, do that. Teach them. why they need to do this, why they need to do that. And then they can just go and they can manage that condition or continue to improve their health on their own, and even pass that knowledge on to other people. So hopefully that way it spreads more and more as well. So yeah, it's just to educate and reach as many people as I can, because as you can see, if we look around us, the health of the entire planet is going completely to pot right now, and we need to do something about it. And it's not going to happen from the top, because the model they have now makes them a lot of money through medications, so they're not going to change it. So it's up to us at kind of the grassroots level to really try and make those changes and just get the word out to people.
Absolutely. And I agree. Again, in similar vein, I practice a therapy model, which is, I don't want you to be a lifelong client. If I've done that, I've not done my job properly. But the easy model for you and I is just to keep people coming, right? Go,
Yeah.
no, you need my services still. You know, you're not quite there yet, but I love what you're doing with the education going. And also it's the accountability, because ultimately each individual is responsible for themselves and no one else. Like, you can show them the tools, set them on the way, but they have to make the changes themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing we try and make clear, is that I say, when you come, I don't make you better. You make yourself better. I can help to give you the tools, but you're the person who does it, and you're the person who has to continue to do it. And like you say, that personal responsibility and accountability is what we all need in all areas of our life as well. That's not just, health. Every area of our life, we need to take that personal responsibility and understand that we have that power.
Brilliant. Now, I know we like to do things bespoke, but if you had to generalize and say one or two things that you could start doing today just to even tip the scales in your favor for health-wise, what would that be?
So one of the things I would say is one of the first things I did with the intermittent fasting, so to cut down how many times you're eating in the day. Like, if you could just cut out snacking and just have either 3 or 2 meals in the day within maybe an 8-hour window, even if you don't change the food you eat, you just do that, that's actually going to really help to improve your health. Because one of the things that we have issues with the most with the constant snacking and the high carb diet we eat is blood glucose is constantly being spiked, which leads to blood insulin spikes, and this leads to a lot of negative effects in the body and inflammation. So just that, even if you didn't change the makeup of your food, but you just had it in a smaller time window, less meals, that's going to be a positive effect. And I think the other thing I would say, in terms of foods, there's obviously many different things that you could remove, but the main one I try and get away from really probably is seed oils, which are in a lot of things nowadays. You read the ingredients packages on most things, the first or second is going to be, rapeseed oil, canola oil, anything like that. So they are, they're originally machine lubricants. They're not made for human consumption. We don't want them in our food supply, and there's far too much of it around. So seed oils would be the thing I would try to get away with from food, if that was the first change to make. And for cooking, I would just cook with, if you can, just with animal fats is the best thing to cook with. Get away from using most of the oils.
Just learned something so new. I did not know that rapeseed oil was designed for vehicles. I think Coke was the same as well, wasn't it? It was designed to like clean an engine or something, and we put that stuff in us as well.
I know there's so much. Once you start to dig into all these things that we're consuming supposedly as food, and you find out what they're originally made for, it's quite an eye opener.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. So, where can people find you?
So the easiest place is our website, which is healthwealthuk.com. From there, you can find all of our social media. You can book coaching sessions if you're interested in that. And you can find out about the podcast there. Then on social media platforms, we're on pretty much everything. The podcast is at HWPodUK, and my coaching is Ryan Health Wealth.
Thank you, Ryan, so much for coming on today. It's been very, very educational. So I might follow up with a little conversation about what else I shouldn't do. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.